truly African.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.
As spokesperson for the majority group, without more, we have had occasions to defend allegations of conflicts of interest, lack of confidence, trust against the leadership of our finance ministry. The recent developments within our economy are of great concern to the greater majority of members of our caucus and our constituents. We have made our grave concern to the President through the parliamentary leadership and the leadership of the party without any positive response. We are by this medium communicating our strong desire that the President change the Minister of Finance and the Minister of State in the Finance Ministry without further delay in order to restore hope into the financial sector and reverse the downward trend in the growth of the economy. The summary of our concerns leads to a plea that the Minister of Finance, Honorable Ofori Attah, and the Minister of State of the Ministry of Finance, Honorable Charles Adwoa, be removed from office. We pray that this prayer will be carried to the presidency. Meanwhile, we want to serve notice, and notice is hereby served, that until such persons as aforementioned are made to resign or removed from office, we, members of the Majority Caucus here in Parliament, will not participate in any business of government by or for the President by any other minister. We hope that those of us of the backbench and members of the Majority Caucus will abide by this prayer. We are saying that if our request is not responded to positively, we will not be present for the budget hearing, neither we will participate in the debate.
Business committee met. The Honorable Minority Leader, that's the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, indicated to the Majority Leader and Chairman of the Business Committee that he was going to proceed with a motion to impeach the Minister for Finance on the basis of poor economic management, inconsistency in policies, non-performance, and the lack of performing even statutory obligations. This morning we woke up only to be told that our brothers from the majority have briefed the media that they are calling on the President to call to reshuffle the finance minister or to dismiss him. What we are coming to say is this: we are the representatives of the people. The minority leader didn't do a press conference. He told the chairman of the business committee that as representatives of the people and as duty bearers, we must move a motion to call for the head of the finance minister. So if our brothers in the majority believe in this, what they should do is to support the call for the minority leader and the motion for the minority leader for the dismissal of the finance minister. I see their press briefing long overdue. If they meant well, the day they went to cabinet meeting and President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo pointed to them that you want me to sack my finance minister when he was sponsoring my campaign, where were you? This is what he told them in cabinet meeting. That was the day we were expecting them to come with such a statement. You sat down. Now they came to correct the communication outside to say that he performed in the first 3 years, and that's why he's not sacking. This is not what he told them in cabinet. The reason why Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo doesn't want to change Ken Ofori Attah is that Ken Ofori Attah used his data bank to support his campaign to become president. And therefore, the finance ministry is as a compensation to the finance minister. And that's why he's not sacking him. He said this to them in cabinet. The ministers were there and he threatened them. You didn't come out with such a motion or such a statement. So if they mean well, you need to test majority of parliamentarians to sack the finance minister. When we went to IPU, they told us that parliamentarians must walk the talk. More action and less talk. So it should not be majority coming to make a press conference, the minority coming to make press conference. If you have 137 minority, 137 plus 1 majority, and both sides believe that the finance minister is killing the economy and therefore he must go, it should not be difficult to mobilize 183 MPs to dismiss or to reshuffle him if the president is failing to do that. So the reason why we are doing this press briefing in response to what our brothers from the majority said is that, yes, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu said it in business committee yesterday, the motion is ready. He indicated he didn't want to surprise the majority leader. And we don't want to take this, their press briefing, as a deflation of our motion. Now, they've shown indication that they also don't want the finance minister. So now it's clear indication that the finance minister, Ken Ofori Attah, has failed. So the information they were trumpeting everywhere that he performed in his first term, and that's what they are maintaining him. They themselves see that there's no truth in it. You and I know we performed the first 3 years because of an oil economy. We have the power to use 183 ministers.
As we speak, there is no motion before the House. And for them to come and address the press and create an impression as though a motion has been admitted by Mr. Speaker leaves so much to be desired. In fact, admissibility of questions, motions, or any process is the sole mandate of Mr. Speaker. So until your motion or any application is admitted by Speaker, you cannot assume that you have a motion properly before the House. So I would want to say that, simply put, they are just throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. We are all aware that the world economy is in crisis. We are all aware that government has taken steps to address this economic crisis that we face as a nation. As we speak, we have an ongoing negotiation with the IMF. Midway in the negotiation, government cannot come and make an announcement. But trust government to be able to make a full disclosure what engagement they've had with the IMF when all these things are concluded. It's difficult, especially for businesses and looking at the way our currency is faring. So anybody raising a concern about the state of the economy will be raising such a concern genuinely. This is not about NDC, MPP. It's a general problem we are facing as a country. Mighty UK. People are paying more for mortgages. Almighty UK. Great Britain. People do not have what it takes to even buy essential commodities. So it is not an easy thing. As parents who are supposed to pay school fees, as businessmen who are supposed to pay bank loans, it is not easy. But what we're supposed to do is to have faith and work together. And I believe that as Parliament has just commenced, what the minority and the majority would have to do is to work together to build consensus on the key issues to support government. To me, that is our main agenda, but not the usual MPP, NDC partisan attacks. Those ones will not help us. Regarding views expressed by the Majority Caucus on certain matters of national, I think that's the beauty of democracy. People having the opportunity to express their views. And where we have gotten to in our democracy, we should be happy that people don't keep what they have in mind within them, that they are being gagged. So we take all of that in good faith and continue to soldier on and work together.
Recognize that the minority members of parliament are all in black today. We are mourning the democracy of the Republic of Ghana, as well as mourning the state of the Ghanaian economy. Our economy is in such a bad shape. If care is not taken, we will crash this economy to a point of no return. And that is why we have decided to mourn the state of the Ghanaian economy and to send a strong signal to government that we will not chicken out. The economy is our livelihood. We will stand firm for the people of Ghana because they deserve it. We think the people of Ghana has done no wrong to deserve this kind of treatment and mismanagement coupled with ineptitude. And so we are acting from now. And so from what the Chief Whip has asked me to do, I am reading the grounds signed by the Chief Whip of the Minority Caucus, indicating the reasons why we in the minority want our minister responsible for finance to step aside. The first one is the fact that we are seeing a despicable conflict of interest, ensuring that he directly benefits from Ghana's economic woes as his companies receive commissions and other unethical contractual advantage, particularly from the Ghana's debt overhang. The second ground has to do with an unconstitutional withdrawals from the consolidated fund in blatant contravention with Article 178 of the 1992 Constitution and the Petroleum Management Act, supposedly for the construction of the President Cathedral. The third point has to do with the illegal payment of oil revenues into offshore accounts in flagrant violation of Article 176 of the 19th Constitution and the PFM Act, as well as the Petroleum Revenue Act, Act 815. The fourth one has to do with deliberate and dishonest misreporting of economic data to Parliament, where he decided to account for expenditure as amortization and certain expenditure as footnote in the financial reporting standard, contrary to global financial reporting standards. The fifth one has to do with the fiscal recklessness, obviously leading to the crash of the Ghanaian cedi, which is currently the worst performing currency in the entire globe. And then number 6 has to do with the alarming incompetence and frightening ineptitude. In fact, if he had acted fast, we could have salvaged this economy. So frightening ineptitude resulting in the collapse of the Ghanaian economy and an excruciating cost of living crisis that we are seeing. And finally, on the last ground, we are saying that we've seen gross mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy, which has occasioned untold and unprecedented hardship to the people of Ghana. Colleagues, we can't do this alone. We need the majority to support us to do this. We need to assist the president to make sure this happens. But I believe that he did not do this alone. The vice president must be made to step aside as the chairman of the economic management team because he has failed woefully. He does not qualify to call himself chairman of economic management team. Unfortunately, Parliament do not have the right to censure him on that grounds. If not, we would have gone after him first. I think the governor has a role to play in this matter, and he should also pack his bag tomorrow morning. I'm saying that the finance minister obviously is the head of the management of the economy as long as the finance ministry is concerned. But he reports to the vice president. So the vice president has failed in his supervision. He has failed in the work that he has been mandated to do. So he has no business to sit in that office and call himself chairman of the economic management team. I call on you directly, Mr. Vice President, if you are listening to us. Resign as the chairman of the economic management team now to save the Ghanaian city and the economy of Ghana. We need that. And then finally on this matter, Mr. President, you have a role to play. Ghanaians elected you as president. When it goes bad on your head. Please and please again, you have to take the blame for what is going on. You cannot run away from this matter. The hardship is serious. The NDC handed over an economy that is better placed, a country in the right place, an economy with proper solid growth projections. If care is not taken, you will
was raised by the majority leader, questioning the propriety of the decision to admit the motion on the report filed by the Privileges Committee on its findings concerning the case of 3 members of Parliament who were referred to it by the Speaker of Parliament for absenteeism, arguing that the report of the committee should only be admitted by way of a statement, eliminating the option for a debate since it was binding in its entirety. However, the Speaker of Parliament, in delivering his ruling, dismissed the objection in limine on the account that the report is subject to the consideration of the plenary.
The decision as to whether or not to admit a motion is the exclusive reserve of the Speaker. In view of the foregoing, the House is well within its rights to receive and consider the report of the committee and make a determination arising out of the recommendations. In the circumstances, it is my ruling that the motion was rightfully admitted and the report of the committee is subject to the consideration of the House. It goes without saying that the preliminary objection of the majority leader to the admissibility of the motion for consideration of the report of the committee is hereby dismissed in limine.
Majority Leader Osei Sabunsu objected to the ruling on the grounds that the report of the committee's finding is not for the determination of the plenary, but is a document that is binding in nature. Hence, the Speaker had departed from established law in his ruling.
He's the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Good morning to you. Thank you very much for making time to join us on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on Pan-African Television. We are live on social media. Facebook is Pan-African Television. That's the page you need to search for. You can watch us live. You can also watch us on YouTube. Pan-African TV is the page you should be looking for. Then you can get to follow us and follow this show keenly. When you're watching on Facebook, there's a comment section. Do share your comments with me on the issues we'll be discussing today, and I'll be reading them as we go along. Once again, welcome and a good morning to you. I hope you had quite a good week. It's been quite an interesting week in politics, though, because this week, the finance minister seemed to have survived another week, because we thought this was going to be his unmaking. The week started on Tuesday with over 90 members of the MPP majority in Parliament holding a press conference and making one simple demand: the finance minister must go, followed by Charles Boahen, who is Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. That was followed by a meeting with the president. Initially, we heard that they did not agree to the proposal of the president. Well, a statement was issued subsequently saying that they have agreed that they should stay, do the budget, and go through the IMF negotiations, completed before he leaves as finance minister. Question is, if the IMF negotiations go as far as December 2023, will he ever go? So we'll be discussing calls for the removal of the finance minister, knowing also that the NDC also filed a motion of censure in Parliament today to get him removed. But they are hoping that those who are not happy, the MPP MPs who are not happy that he's in office, will join them and give them the votes he needs to kick him out of the finance ministry. So we're talking about that. And then we'll move on to the president's round of consultations this week. He's been speaking to certain groups. In fact, he even went as far as agreeing transport fare increments with the driver unions, 19%. He's spoken to Forest Bureau. He's spoken to several other groups in an attempt to find a solution to the problem. There's a small message from his predecessor, who is seeking a return, former President John Dramani Mahama, who says at this point in time, he should take control of the economic management team and lead it himself. So we're talking about that, those consultations and whether they are adequate. And then we have one other issue to end with. That has to do with the 3 absentee MPs. The Speaker says the committee report of the Privileges Committee should be laid in the House, debated and voted on. The majority says no, that is not a parliamentary provision. That's not constitutional provision. Once the Privileges Committee is done with their work, all they have to do is inform Parliament of their decision, then the Speaker will act accordingly. So they expect the seat of Sarah Adwoa to be declared, but the Speaker insisted. So they've headed to court seeking an interpretation of that article. So those are the issues we are talking about this morning. Joining me for the discussion, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. I read a very well put together statement from them today. First, this week, they commended the MPP MPs and talked about what we need to be doing to fix the problem. Getting closer to me is Elvis Banoemuleng, who is a former Deputy National Organizer of the MPP. And then I have a deputant this morning, Agyaponmaa Ansong, joins us this morning. We'll be joined by Dr. David Percy, who is a student of history and politics. Thank you very much for choosing us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji Alhaji. My name is Sena Nombo. Don't forget, this show is live on Radio Code. It's also live on Ahuto 92.3 FM and several other affiliates across the country. So let's start the discussion with what happened this week and was kicked off by the majority, some majority members of Parliament. And I start from my left. Adwoa, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, I am having mixed feelings this morning. I am not very sure, but I am very honored to be on a platform like this. It's mostly a dream for most communicators, and I'm honored to be on the same platform with people we have watched and learned from. So besides that, as a young Ghanaian woman, this week has been quite eventful for me. I would say that it has been one of the weeks where I have been taken on a certain emotional roller coaster with fear for the future, certain points anxiety, and certain times some, level of depression about the state of our country. Some of us already know some of the issues that we are facing as a country, but then this week I better understood some of my friends and colleagues and young people who would rather not pay attention to politics, but would rather prefer to go on TikTok and laugh and do comedy, because sometimes when you follow some of the issues that is happening, some of the decisions that are being taken and how it's affecting our lives and endangering our future as young people, it leaves you broken and depressed. And of course, as it is normal to human nature, people would like to move into self-preservation by pretending that these things are not happening. And this week, I happened to be at the auditorium where His Excellency John Dramani Mahama delivered a speech on building the Ghana that we want. And like you asked me how I feel this morning. This week, I was made aware that the Ghana cedis in the space of 10 months has depreciated against the dollar over 60%. This week, I have been told that Ghana's public debt, as it stands now, is at a staggering 522 billion cedis. And the dollar cedi depreciation, I can't help but to think what the impact is for young people like myself, those who have gotten scholarships and have to change money into dollars and go to school, and young people who are doing business. And this public debt, we are told, this current government is responsible for about 80% of this debt that we have accumulated. We are also told that inflation is currently at 37%, with consumer price inflation at 40%. So then how are we going to survive? Our mothers, how are we able to buy food to eat? Price of rice, oil, and all food commodities have gone up. Today, this week, we've been told that about 90% of our tax revenues are going into debt servicing and amortization. And we are told that to be able to even get a little relief, we must be prepared to be looking for some amounts, about 200 billion Ghana cedis, which is about 45% of our debt to GDP, to be able to see some relief. Cocoa Board is owing about 14 billion. ECG is owing about 12 billion. Government is owing contractors about 100 billion. And in all of this, most state-owned enterprises are almost driving at insolvency. Within all of this, state funds, statutory funds that has been created to cushion us, most of it have been collateralized without paying attention to the policy rationale behind the establishment of these statutory funds. And so we heard that GET Fund has been collateralized until 2035. And so how are we going to build schools and purchase textbooks for young people coming up? So if you ask me this morning that how am I feeling, Sena, I'm a little bit morbid with the kind of situation we find ourselves in. And like a young woman, I have great concerns. If you paid attention to the recent data that was released by Ghana Statistical Service, about 80,000 young women below the age 17 are living with men or are married. What the data did not reveal are the rest of us above that age who can't still be self-reliant no matter how hard we've worked, those whose hope was to escape poverty with education, their hopes have been dashed because you live in an economy where your minimum wage is about 13 cedis, 50 pesos, which is even, lower than the price of bread, like I said the other time. You see, it's like everything has been set in a way to frustrate young people. Young women today are doing so many, and there's a word called hookup or something, like young women are doing so many things just to survive. And we don't want to hear about those who even appear to be independent because, of course, in their various workplaces, we have an idea of how much they are paid and how much their hair costs. So it is difficult for us young people. And so I will agree with those people who said that perhaps His Excellency, the former President John Dramani Mahama, addressed this nation at a point where we actually need it. And as the statesman as he is, I was in the auditorium, I watched him, as he, talk about these issues and proffered many solutions to some of the challenges we are facing, both short-term and long-term, medium-term to long-term. And one of those is what you tabled before us today, which is the removal of Honorable Ken Ofori Attah as Finance Minister. And this is not the first time His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has suggested this. About 9 months ago, he said same. Today, we are saying same. Okay. And to people who watch us, it is not for nothing that we say that Honorable Ken Ofori Attah must leave office. I paid attention to the motion that was tabled before Parliament. First among the motions was the fact that it has been alleged that he has engaged in a situation of conflict of interest, where he was called onto the floor of Parliament and he admitted that his data bank and that of Black Star brokerage belonging to Honorable Charles Boahen was part of the book runners for our loans. Today, what do we see? We have total receipts of Eurobonds totaling about 13.7 billion. You see, reckless borrowing that has further driven our economy aground. We have also seen in the motion tabled before Parliament that Honorable Ken Ofori Attah withdrew some money from the Consolidated Fund on 3 occasions without recourse to the Constitution, to Parliament, I beg your pardon. And one of these instances was when he withdrew money in support of National Cathedral. You see, and when it comes to doing things in contravention to the Constitution, it becomes a matter of legality, and that must be investigated. We have been told that he has misrepresented data, and that he has massaged some of the figures. He made himself the economic chef who was cooking data. And in Honorable Ato Forson's presentation, he brought to the fore certain evidence where he asked questions. If we are saying that between January 2022 to June 2022, our total, revenue collected was about 30 billion, and we have used about 26.1 billion in debt servicing. Okay, we have paid salaries and wages to the tune of about 17 billion when you do the maths. Okay, and in this same 30 billion, 10 billion of that was earmarked for District Assembly Common Fund, NHIL, Road Fund, and Get Fund. When you do the calculation, obviously, you can see that the figures do not tally, and that some monies were borrowed to support these budgets, but was not mentioned. So these are the issues that we are interested in and want to interrogate. And when I saw the interview, the press conference organized by the majority MPs in Parliament, for a moment, you know, I was wondering, how did it take members of parliament on the majority side this long to realize that our problems indeed was not Russia-Ukraine war per se or COVID-19 per se, but the problem was Honorable Ken Ofori Attah. But then, better late than never. So now that they came forward to issue that press conference, I must confess I was a little bit impressed. And then I thought in my spirit, for once, maybe, just maybe, our MPs on the majority side have learned to put the interest of the ordinary Ghanaian before their own interest. Because we saw them when it was time to pass e-levy, how members of parliament was flown from different countries, how even some of them abandoned their newborn babies to come to parliament to vote for hardship in parliament. And so when they came out to bring their voice to support the call to remove Honorable Ken Ofori Attah, you know, I had a little hope. Only for them to meet the president, and then there's a 360 U-turn. I mean, I do not understand. Per the press conference, you could tell that, according to some of them, it was based on the principle that some of their constituents were complaining of hardship. And, of course, if you are in parliament, you are not there for yourself. You are there to represent people. And so if you want to listen to your constituents to take decisions, that is the reason for which we put you there, and that is the reason for which we pay you. And then you decide to meet the president, and the president say, allow Honorable Ken Ofori Attah to lead IMF negotiations and read the budget. And God forbid, are we saying that as a country, touch wood, if Honorable Ken Ofori Attah is incapacitated today, this country would not move forward? We have had a history where a whole certain president, His Excellency John Evans Atta Mills, may his soul rest in peace, left us and the country moved. And so why can't we set aside, why can't we ask Honorable Ken Ofori Attah to step aside while we investigate the allegations that has been made against him, at least for this country, to save this country? So you come back to tell us that you want him to lead IMF in negotiations. The person has driven us to a ditch. We want him to get out so another driver can take us, you know, from the ditch. You are telling us to allow him to start the ignition. I don't think it is, you know, it is a reasonable reason for them to come back to us. I want them to go back and think about this. And this time when they come forward, they should consider the fact that they are dealing with people who are equally intelligent and can decipher information just like them. I don't buy their reason, and I'm sure most Ghanaians do not buy into their reasons also. And so, as His Excellency John Dramani Mahama suggested, we need to remove Honorable Ken Ofori Attah, dissolve the entire economic management team, reconstitute a new one, and the president pays attention to the economic management team. The finance ministry is not, the bona fide property of Honorable Ken Ofori Attah. Of course, and I'm believing he's beginning to feel so, because we have seen instances where the Honorable Minister came out to tell Ghanaians that asking him to resign from his position is like asking a father to abandon his children. And so it leaves some of us to wonder, are we seeing a case of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is a disorder, a kind of disorder, which actually makes a guardian or a parent, in the medical field, they will make a parent or a guardian impoverish his or her own children or child or whoever they are in charge with. just so they can pretend to be taking care of them. And so the moment you are getting better, they feel irrelevant. And so they impoverish you, and then they pretend to take care of you. Is that a case that we are seeing? That the same man who has impoverished us, for some reason, feels like we have developed Stockholm syndrome, and so we should be in love with him, while he continued to impoverish us. We beg him. We know and we understand that we need the members of parliament from the majority side, because according to the constitution, we need about a 2/3 of members of parliament, which is about 180 and over, to be able to see this through, at least start a debate. And we are very much aware that it will still go back to the president's decision to sack him or not, or him deciding to resign by himself or not. But at least they should make us feel like, for once, members of parliament on the majority side want to put Ghana before party interest or before even personal interest. So at this point, this is the call that we are making, because young people are really suffering. Today, health, the pharmaceutical industry that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama invested so much money in, giving money to the likes of Danex, to Binko, supporting them. Today, the pharmaceutical industry is struggling. Every industry is struggling under this government. I was surprised to find out that today, price of Coartem, malaria, Coartem, is about 100 cedis and over. Hypertensive medications have gone up. Even contraceptives that are important for the reproductive health and decisions of women and young women, the cheapest you can get is about 20 cedis. Sanitary pads, 15 cedis, 12 cedis. When you want to talk about baby diapers, we have some about 500 cedis and over. And I used to say, some years ago, when you went to a shop and you wanted to buy Chokomilo, if you bought 1 CD, they give you a handful. Today, what do we see? 2 cubes for 1 CD. How are our children going to school? The price of Calipo has increased. How are our children buying snacks? Buying snacks for our children. We are feeling the impacts. Perhaps for them, it is about the statistics. What they fail to realize is that behind the statistics are the Adwoa, Agyaponmaa Ansongs, are the Sarah Texans, are the Dinah Dedephonies, are the Ekia Sikers, are the many, many other young girls and young men behind those statistics. And we are feeling the impact. So I am just calling on these MPs. As His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, gave in that speech, you could tell that we want to put the country before pride and pettiness. So we are calling on all those who matter and members of parliament to ensure that we bring some fresh brains and fresh ideas on board and see through with some of the recommendations that has been made and some of the solutions that has been proffered for them.
Thank you. Thank you very much for starting the discussion for us. A few messages, though, just before I go to you, Elvis. This one is coming from, this one is from Papa BC, who says, Ofori Attah, is Ofori Attah living with all his tentacles? I mean, all he appointed from Data Bank, Mackenzie Group, among others, to public offices in charge of hard-earned taxpayers' cash. Like, he mentions some names, mentions Mr. Kelly Gadeko, Reverend Obama Tete, etc. must all resign alongside Ofori Attah. If not, the sacking of Ofori Attah is meaningless. That's coming from Papa Bisio. There's this one, this one from Molanyo in Akwetia, who says majority of Ghanaians are supposedly thinking the CD depreciation is the fault of finance minister. If I were him, I would have done the needful thing to resign to prove Ghanaians wrong, and that will get him more respect from the people. The Ofori Attah must consider showing the exit to himself. This one from Dennis Akwete says, though the gesture of those majority caucus was commendable, their heroic disposition would have been more hailed if they had stood their grounds. Just yesterday, I learned, as the Honorable Kwame Pinim revealed, that Honorable Setekpe was not the one who led the IMF negotiations, because prior to going to IMF by the Mahama government, Honorable Tekpe made a public statement that he did not believe in going to the IMF. So how come that those MPs could be swayed by that excuse from the president, as though the whole IMF negotiation would have come to an end if the finance minister dropped dead today? God forbid. Unless the said call by the Majority Caucus was staged for political expediency. It is regrettable how they have allowed themselves to be rewind on the part of making bigger history. Mystic in Instagram sent this one. It says, good morning. Former President John Dramani Mahama has spoken from a nationalistic point of view, displayed patriotism, and gave numerous solutions to the clueless, corrupt Nanado Bawumia-led government. But Nanado will never listen to advice and solutions because he thinks he is the repository of all knowledge, and also he is the grandpapa of intransigence. Never again to this nation records. That's Mystic and in Sawam. And then there's, let me end with this one, which says, good morning, Sena. It's abundantly clear that Nanado doesn't think about this country. It's an insult to tell us that Ofori Attah will leave after the IMF negotiations. Kwesi Pratt Jnr was sacked in the middle of finance minister's meeting. Please, we need a break. We've been insulted enough. Elvis, good morning.
Sena, very good morning to you. Very good morning to all of us. My girlfriend had eloquently driven a good number of, statistical figures in respect of the topic to be, discussed. And for me, I think that my position is still not going to change on this very subject, given that I am still in a very, celebrant mood of vindication. Remember, the psalmist once sang that many are the afflictions from the people of the world who understand him not. Neither do they know his counsel and wisdom from above, but vindication lies in the womb of time. When you have the weapon of truth, you speak truth without fear of favor. You speak truth without fear of intimidation. You speak truth to power. You speak truth to even those who matter. You speak truth to those whom everybody fears. You will be accused. You will be chastised. You will be persecuted. But indeed, there is a time that shall come where the season will agree with the atmosphere to vindicate you. That is what has happened to me. Sena, consistently and persistently, even as it were, a national executive of the ruling party, I was very firm that the escalation of government projects in a rhetoric of sloganeering was not governance. 1. 2, I was again very clear and emphatic that the extreme exaggeration of policy success and achievements does not reflect the true accomplishment we see on the streets. Vindicated. 3, I was the advocate in this government calling for us to eat the humble pie, where I postulated honesty and transparency as core leadership parameters that must be complied with without negotiation. Admonished my party, admonished my president, that we do so with a sense of urgency so that we can carry along the public on the realities of the difficulties bedeviling the economy and what we were to face ahead. E-levy, again, on this platform and several others. I said it was almost a senseless policy, only to the extent that, the particular drama that actually collapses the rationale of, justifying e-levy in the first place was one on the basis of a revocation of toll booths. You remember? Toll booths alone raked in excess of 78 million annually for this country in revenue mobilization. You on the one page of your budget, the last year's budget, I wasn't in Ghana but listened to the budget and I was like, no, this is a fundamental mistake. You take away a revenue pillar raking in over 78 million annually. Then you, on the next page, without any respect for the number of people employed under the toll booth system, there's several other people making lives and living, feeding families from toll booths, because it was a major source of employment. You do know that? You scrap that off. Then, in the next page of same budget, you introduce electronic levy, targeted at about, I think, 9 million, right?
No,
I mean,
6.9. It's 6.9 billion.
It was initially 9.
6.9.
And was scaled down to 6.9 when the opposition was very critical at government on it. Then further, the percentages had some alterations on the basis of dialogue. So now tell me, where is the sense of wisdom in doing that? You throw away 78 million. Pay no heed to Auditor General's reports, which over the years, across all successive governments of the Fourth Republic, have exposed tax leakages and several other procurement and compensationary breaches. I mean, these are the realities. But in the assemblage of all of these, where do we table the lack of prudence? We table the lack of prudence on the heart of the matter on the very basis of core appointees by the president who are either one, clueless about what their mandate is, or practicing the worst form of, which is 2, deliberately charting on paths that buys for themselves personal satisfactions to the total disadvantage of the rest of the country. This is why we are where we are. And this is why the head of Ofori Attah is being called for on the chopping board. We started advising His Excellency the President that, look, on the ground, things are bad. We need to reconsider issues and we need to shake up the government to put people on their toes. What did the President tell us? His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo told us those advocating for reshuffling of his government were either envious, unemployed people of his own government seeking for others to be sacked so they can have appointments, or they were members from the NDC. For me, I think this was a very low moment that culminated into a monumental embarrassment to governance. And so if we are at where we are today, like I keep saying, yes, nobody in an objective analysis of the critical factors culminating into the current economic quagmire will seek to do so eliminating or ignoring the practical impact of the Russians' war on Ukraine. Why? Because of the geopolitical and geoeconomic, positioning of these countries when it comes to global energy, supplies, and in some cases, global food chains, which feeds into critical pharmaceutical, food, beverages, and other industries. So there's no argument about that particular, point. However, it is for such reasons every nation, especially developing nations, must develop, buffers to be able to withstand the shocks. Because the very parameters that feeds into the progress or otherwise of economic indicators are predicated on unpredictability with certainty. You only do the predictions on the basis of probability. And so it is reasonably foreseeable that there could be global issues
that may undermine domestic efforts economically. And when pillars are broken, then social fabric is rendered in chaos, as we have seen now. So, Russia-Ukraine is only as important as it only sought to further exacerbate our own domestic irresponsibility. And for me, I'm bitter at this point. I'm bitter that we've got to be in such a situation. And so, the very issues that took NDC to opposition and brought us to power are the very issues we are doing, in fact, even more than the NDC did. And so it is obvious what the outcome is going to be. Sena, it tells you then why the psychological position of the 90 MPs whose issue before us you want us to discuss is in the fore. For me, if there is any group of people or persons whose posture and conduct on this matter is most embarrassing, it's those 90 MPs. Yes, I will sound controversially so. I think they were just pretending. I don't see any seriousness in the MPs. It was pretense. If they meant their words, they would have still stood their grounds and disagree with Mr. President. What happened in that meeting between them and Mr. President that they cannot talk about now, but have quietly agreed with Mr. President, shared the grace, and closed the meeting? What happened there? We are not stupid in this country. You see, let us be honest. If the NDC is honest to itself when it is in power, and the NPP is honest to itself when it is in power, Ghana will change. I don't want to believe that it was a meeting. Maybe it was a dinner. It was something else with lofty packages to convince people. Because, look, if you are a principled man, and you are saying that, look, in diagnosing the issues, and in compliance with the cry of majority Ghanaians in ordinary street conversations, one key thing we need to do in tackling the issue is to instill public confidence in the first place. In fact, it is the first principle of public affairs when it comes to leadership crisis or crisis management. Leadership is required to, first of all, reposition the psychological trajectory of the people before you are able to bridle thoughts and understanding, okay, to recreate and to recommunicate a vision that must be pursued with coherent strategic principles. And so for these 90 MPs or whatever their number is, to have gone back on their own words quickly in hours after what appeared to be a very serious press conference. Should it have taken a press conference of majority MPP MPs for the president to meet them in the first place? Should it? Yes, I know for a fact legally that it is not for MPs to discuss an instruction to the president. But that is why the option of censure, vote of censure, is available to them. You know what that does? A vote of censure essentially is a legal command that is passed on to the president at the instance of parliament or any legislative body, seeking for the revocation of the appointment of a minister or deputies or other critical state actors. It is a legal command, but very persuasive in nature. So the final decision or final authority, so to say, to fire or not any of such appointees at whose instance or any of such, state functionaries at whose, in respect of whom the vote of censure is passed, is entirely a prerogative by the president to exercise. However, when Parliament does that, it is a straight communication to any president who understands shame and hold respect for the representational powers of Parliament to know that what they are saying is the voice of the people and not just their voices. And so to have gone to meet the MPs for a negotiation in the first place was an act of irresponsibility on the part of the president, completely. We should not massage these situations. The president goofed big time by that particular step. And the MPs actually danced to a hypocritic tone by agreeing when you should be mounting more pressure. It means they never meant it. What is the wisdom? Huh? What is the wisdom in the justification Mr. President gave? That we should leave Mr. Ofori Attah, yes, I will sack him, but only to the extent that the IMF negotiations are over. And number two, that the next budget is prepared and laid before the House with the accompanying appropriation bills, so to say. How important is Mr. Ofori Attah that in his absence none of these can work? Is he important than the Constitution? Is he intelligent than the numerous technical? In fact, he's not the one doing the work. Let's be honest. It is never any finance minister who really does the technical work that goes into budget building. It isn't. Even without need, and with the greatest of respect and apologies to the people of Ghana, I'm not to remind us, the Ghanaian people, about our collective bitter past. But you do recall in 2012, somewhere June, when we lost the sitting president of the Republic, Professor John Evans Atta-Mills. Do you remember he died? He went to the office in the morning or in the early hours of the days. We had him as president, but he died somewhere along the line. Did Ghana come to a standstill because the president is dead? Did any policy being driven by him at that point in time, or the strategic direction of governors, come to a complete break simply because the president had died? So even the absence of a president got the whole nation to move. How can we be suggesting that the absence of a certain minister will create stagnancy in the financial brackets? Or we think Ofori Attah cannot die the way President Mills died or the way any other person dies? I don't pray he dies now, but death is inevitable. I mean, everybody will die. So assuming we wake up one morning to the news of the departure of Mr. Ofori Attah or anybody who is ever Minister for Finance, does that mean budgets will no longer be read? When we know there are technical committees behind the scenes that are doing this. So all these situations are simply because we did not pay heed to advice. And I'm ashamed. And every communicator or leading member of the NPP should bow down their heads in shame. Especially the 90 members of Parliament who have demonstrated double standards and hypocrisy on the heart of the matter. Sena, the action of these 90 MPs was an exercise without principle. If there was principle, they would have stood their grounds. Because why are they not calling for the removal of any particular minister? Let us remember that it is not only the finance minister who is responsible for the economic situation of the country. We have critical sectors of the economy whose affairs are only coordinated in monetary terms at the oversight function of the minister. Why are they not asking for the removal of those ministers, but particularly Ken Ofori Attah? It means that these MPs must have been aware of certain underdealings that have culminated into, the deeper wounds of the economy. That is why they started with him. Now, what is revealing is moving away from just personalizing, the personalization of the matter as though it was only Mr. Ofori Attah alone. Let us look at even the bigger picture. We have a lot of useless entities in this country where we just give budgets to for no work done. There's no productivity in this country. Oh. That is why when you see our budget taken up to about 78% just for compensation, it's laughable. We are not creating meaningful jobs. Majority of that money goes to places where people receive huge salaries that are unmerited. And not only salaries, other allowances and other emoluments. When you talk about these things, they say you are jealous. Me, all the things I've been saying have been on the basis of advice. And are you stopping me? I want to read. No, I won't conclude. Go to Proverbs 12:15 of your Bible. When you depart from wisdom, this is what happens. Proverbs 12:15, and I read, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to counsel. A wise man. So in other words, immediately you avoid wise counsel, you are a stupid man, you are a fool. That is what it means. So it then goes to a critical conclusion that foolishness and stupidity is the cause of the problem we are talking about today. I will do more on this subject when we come to the next topic, which has to do with the economic mess. Then we will be able to make an analytical dissection of those responsible for the problem now and those who have also been responsible for similar problems in the past and are now taking an opportunistic capitalization of the matter as though they were political Puritans. This issue is not a one-day thing. Even though the NPP government goofed, this issue started with the irresponsibility of government from day one. And the earlier we begin to speak truth to power, the better for us, because the situation is dangerous. And I heard my girlfriend here sounded quite, I saw some gender traits in the conversation, but the truth actually is, Charlie, these days, the men too, they suffer. Men and women all are suffering. Children, the aged, everybody is what? Everybody is suffering. And so, my good friend Sena, this is where I will table it as I wait for the next topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Elvis. Well, if you just join us, the matter of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on TV, Pan-African television. We're also live on Radio Gold. We are live on Shine FM in Akachi on 96.9, Hills FM in Adaklo on 91.7, Nyawasi Radio Ketekrachi is on 89.7, Sela Radio Dabala is 97.1, Diamond FM Tamale is on 93.7, Bewa Radio Yendi is on 106.5, Radio Kitawan Zapoba 95.7, Benya FM Elmina 105.7, Cape FM Cape Coast is on 93.3, Global FM 105.1 is the frequency, is in whole. Zeps FM is on 95.9 in Zebila. Through FM, you can get them on 92.5 in Adeso, and La Maria FM 89.1 in Tripoli. So those are the stations we are currently live on. A few messages from Facebook, and then I'll move to
back from viewers.
Okay.
This happened on Thursday. They should check it.
Okay.
I've wasted my time again.
Actually, you were clearly here. They clearly listened to you. Heard everything you said. I'll jump to Dr. Percy before I come to Facebook messages. Doc, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Sena. Well, we learn every day, don't we? Coming in, I heard the previous contributor. I believe he speaks for the MPP. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm good. Because I can't remember the last time I heard someone from the MPP speak the way he did. But he said something about honesty. Frankly, I've never associated the MPP with honesty in any matter. So I was, but like I said, we all learn. Okay. It is possible that there's a new current developing in that party tradition, so-called. That is good luck to them. But if it is the old party that I know, and everything tells me that it hasn't changed much. And if he intends to have a long career in that party, then his prospects are not very good. But that's another matter. He speaks about the lack of principle and the double standards of the, is it 90 now, right?
Yeah.
Because I read 80, then I read 90.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was coming after first, from my information that we have, that they had gone to see their leadership had gone to see the president. The president had summoned a meeting of cabinet and the most important people in the party, and simply told them that, look, the chap was there so that he can settle their debts for all the investment that he has made getting this far. And they were supposed to understand it. So the commissions and stuff that he was collecting was to pay for that. And this is for the future. And Ghanaian people should have been alert. When from the very beginning, Finance Minister Ofori Attah informed the world that he was going to take no pay. The Ghanaian people should have been very alert. When from the get-go, the world was informed that the Finance Minister was going to take no pay. But that was ignored. Then from the get-go, he started with insider trading with this, there was a bond. He got a particular name.
Ken bond.
Ken bond, yes. Okay. And by the second year, he has set up the mechanism for milking our country as we have come to know it. His company and the company of his subordinate having a duopoly as middlemen for government borrowing. From then on, it was simple addiction. The more we borrowed, the more money he earned. And you see, you must not make the mistake of isolating the finance minister from the president, his appointer. Because we know that he was the president's treasurer and campaign finance manager. So if there have been any illicit money made, the president cannot, for a second, be isolated. But I see that the pair of them are joined at the hip. And in any case, if they succeed in getting the president to allow Ken to go, I can't see how the president himself can survive. It could be a question of the choice of execution. You know, you can have execution by firing squad. You can also have execution by lethal injection. But beyond that, beyond the lack of principle shown by the members of parliament, if they really meant, if they were really to be taken seriously, because they had gone with, a petition, they had been heard in camera, and told to stay things. But I mean, the version I heard was that people were warned that if they dare, then they come out publicly and put their little reputations that they have on the line, only to settle for this stupid compromise. Must say a lot about their own, intelligence. But you see, we must not get away with the illusion that getting rid of our crooked finance minister, or even getting rid of the president, will solve our problem. It may only be a step in that direction. But what is definite is very long and difficult, harsh austerity for the working people of the South. Because in the end, everywhere, whether it's here, whether it's in the UK, it's the working people who pay for this folly. And just sheer criminality of the leaders. Ultimately, when it's all said and done. Of course, there will be a lot of pain to go around. It is clear by any measure that the Ghanaian elite, who have been complicit, at least for the past 4 years, when it became clear that this was the game, but who have kept quiet for whatever reason, either because they are supporters, sympathizers of the ruling party, or just cowardice. Because people who have lent money to government in any shape or form are going to lose money. The well-connected are doing everything they can to cash in and to convert the monies into dollars. The well-connected. But not everybody is well connected. So there are several organizations that are going to lose money. Banks, insurance companies, trusts, plus individuals who may have their savings in treasury bills, etc., etc. Churches, whatever. And there's going to be a lot of pain for the next several years, if not at least a decade. Because we're in a very deep, deep hole. But two other things. As it has done right up to this point, and bringing up the issue of honesty, this regime still feeds the illusion that, money is about to come soon. Yes. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we talk about the next one, which is the president having this OCPP style tete-a-tete. I'm saying this thing, in a guarded manner because Kwesi is sitting on my left. But there was something I learned from the OCPP. Not Nkrumah CPP, but the CPP that succeeded Nkrumah. That they'll go into palavers with different sets of people. And what each set is told is different from what the other gets to know. And the secret is to keep all the parties separate. I'm saying this because as a member of the late Reform Party, we spent close to 2 years talking to the CPP and others, including the late Dan Lartey, about launching a new CPP. And for 2 years, we engaged in that circus until all of us met in the same forum. Then one old elderly leader of the CPP said, so you guys don't know that the people who are doing this thing have no such mandate, and that they were expressly told about this and that and that and that. But that's a digression. So, and at the heart of all of this is none other than the president. He who has never accepted responsibility for anything, and then his party. Because right up to now, until this last few days, the official narrative was that when the mess we were, because of Ukraine and Russia and the bullets falling there, right? And COVID. And by logic, if you are going to get out of where we are, then Russia, Ukraine has to stop. And then we must find a cure for COVID. But you see, what gets in the way is a point I made here the last time I was on your show. Again, at a certain point, my colleague didn't quite agree with me. It's about the question of honesty. There's no adult who can swear that he hasn't told a white lie, as they call it, once in a while. There are things you say to kids to keep them quiet, to get yourself out of a difficult situation, right? But to find someone who has built his entire political career on his honesty, as our president has done, is right at the heart of our problem. Just owning up. So I anticipate this address, so-called, right, on Sunday. When COVID came, we were not forewarned before the president invaded our homes, were we? No. But it's all part of this business of managing the narrative and nurturing illusions. Because if you're looking at the reasons that the president has given, he wants his cousin to handle the drawing up of the budget. And as my colleague has said, this is complete and utter nonsense. The business of building a budget is a process that has started several months back with preparation of estimates back and forth, etc., etc. That can go on without Ken. But then he also says that he wants him to manage our negotiations with the IMF. Given the depth of where we are, this process could take anything up to 3 years. Yes. Because one of the things that were the angling was that, look, they're going to focus on domestic holders of government debt. I don't see how that's possible. And getting agreements with the sharks and vultures who hold our external debt is going to be some hell of a job. These are private, these are not governments. As it was in the days of EPIC. These are private, but some call themselves vultures actually, because they feed on carcasses of people like ourselves or countries like ourselves. So the illusion that is being generated and being nurtured that, oh, by the next budget, next month, some money will come in to show us up so that we can go back to our old ways. It's completely unfounded. Okay. But going forward, because the conversation so far has also given the impression or misimpression that a dance with the IMF will somehow set us on a path to success. But then we know that we have been to the IMF several times. Of course, not in this condition. Not in this condition, but we've been several times to the IMF. Now, the IMF itself is a lender. It belongs to the club of lenders. The IMF is there to ensure that we remain in debt, but we are able to service our debts. It's in business to lend money, but it is in this with those who control the global political economy. So it's a lender of last resort. So by the nature of our lives, the way we've structured our economy, we are guaranteed to go into debt. That's the fundamental problem that we have to address. Why? We exchange raw materials for manufacturers. And just a simple illustration I'd like to use, because this is an illustration I've used on many occasions. In 1960, the equivalent of a ton of cocoa could fetch you a Volkswagen car. In 1960, the equivalent of a ton of cocoa could be exchanged for a Volkswagen car. Today, I think that you need something between 18 and 20 tons for the equivalent. This is the global arrangement. And the EU, America, Western powers all have a vested interest in maintaining this arrangement. Whether by sponsoring terrorists at the backyard so that they enter through the front yard, by sponsoring coups, assassinations, whatever. the tools and instruments are many and numerous, but the objects are the same, to keep us where we are. Dependent, in debt. So in our situation, it's like your poor working man whose income is not sufficient. He owes the Yokegari woman. He may have some small debt with the Akwateshi seller. He's in arrears with the landlord. The whole neighborhood knows that he owes everybody. So you go to the last lender, the lender of last resort. He says, okay, go and come to an agreement with the Akwateshi seller and the Yokegari woman and the landlord, and bring me evidence that they've all agreed to give you some small space. So when I add mine, you can also pay me. And none of them are interested in a dead debtor. If you owe the Akwateshi woman and you die, that money is gone. So maybe they may settle for some rescheduling. That's the situation we are in now. So no one must peddle the illusion that getting Ken, having his cousin out of the way, gets out of the hole. But at least it demonstrates that we understand the nature of where we are, and that you need credible people, honest people to lead the dialogue. Now that's why they manage by keeping the Ghanaian people in the dark. And I say that there's a lot of blame to go around. I will name the academia. I'll name the so-called moral society, the so-called men and women of God, who are otherwise loud on many matters, but who have been completely complicit in this matter. And then I also cite the media. Just before I came here, I was just going over a small interview that somebody, I think on TV3, was having with Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr. Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr. was saying that, the conversation with the IMF is not going well. And the journalist asked him, how do you know? He says, I know, it is my job to know. Because we are not well served by, for the most part, a very lazy and complicit media, who will not do any work investigating, or will just run with copy that they are fed. There was someone who said that he could do without all the political forces, but the media was key. Because the citizens know a lot of the folly and the foolishness that has gone on will not happen. But many journalists have been very happy to go along with things as they have been right up to this moment, and they are still playing at it. I'll leave things for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Percy. Okay. So just a few messages from Facebook, and I'll go to Mr. Pratey Farouk. Says, seriously, Ghana's economy is suffering from sovereign immunity. God save Ghanaians from incompetent leadership of the MPP government. Eric Okusapani says, Basena, the majority U-turn on their earlier decision to demand the president sack Ofori Attah is tantamount to treachery. Monies had again changed hands. This is Kelly Selassie, who says, no matter what, Ghana economy will bounce back again because we believe in His Excellency Nana Addo. There's Bibi in Kaswa. Our current challenges, we will never take economic lessons from Mahama. That's coming from Bibi in Kaswa. David Ikefuna is saying, thank God MPP MPs have made it loud and clear that Ofori Attah contributed to the nation's economic woes. This too shall pass. There's Haruna Jibril, who sends greetings to Elvis, says, indeed, his type in this game of politics are not many. I really admire him a lot, and he should continue making us proud. Donald Cornerstone, Koferi, says, good morning. I admire the posture of Botah on national issues with regards to the MPP. I encourage him to partner Kennedy Agyaponmaa to salvage the MPP from this current mess. Agbenavi Anani says, more is coming to capture the media. Says, read the green letter from the Jubilee House. So those are some of the messages I'm seeing on Facebook. We'll go through a bit more as we go along. Mr. Pratt?
Well, having listened to my brother and friend, Elvis, I must confess that I should have prepared adequately for this program. I have failed to prepare adequately for this program. I think I should have come to the studio with a copy of the Advanced Learners English Dictionary. In spite of the fact that I'm unable to make references to the Advanced Learners English Dictionary, we'll plod on and see what we can make out of the very, very intricate language that he has used on this program this morning. But why are you guys laughing? Well, your laughing is infectious. Okay. Next time when I'm coming on the program, and I'm told that Elvis will be coming, I will make sure that I come with a very fat copy of the Advanced English Learners Dictionary.
And I need a bigger one. Because yourself and Mr. Percy are two of the best speakers of the language.
I'm even surprised.
Can we move on? Now, Sena, something very significant happened last Tuesday. Indeed, I was in the studios of one of the radio stations when I was told that a number of the members of parliament, MPP members of parliament, were addressing a press conference, and that what they intended to do was to call on the president to dismiss the finance minister and the minister of state responsible for finance, and that they were going to indicate that if the president failed to do what they wanted, they would not carry on any government business. I was totally shocked. I was totally shocked for many, many reasons. And one of the reasons which made this extremely shocking, that these same members of parliament had been very, very busy parroting the concern that the Ghanaian economy was in tatters because of the Russia-Ukraine war, what they call the Russia-Ukraine war. So when I heard that these same members of parliament were actually calling the president to dismiss the minister for incompetence, so I was wondering. First, I was wondering whether Ofori Attah was a commander in the Russian army or the Ukraine army. Now, what about Charles Boahen? How does he feature in the Russian-Ukrainian war? I was totally confused. But then it turns out that they were blaming something else for the state of the economy. That is the incompetence of the president's own appointees. It was revealing and it was shocking. Then I said to myself, if these members of parliament do what they are said to be doing, what are the implications for governance? Clearly, it chips away the mandate of the president. Don't forget that the Constitution has provisions for impeachment. Members of parliament can actually sack the president. Now, at the time that I was being told that these members of parliament were busily challenging the president and so on, initially we were told that there were 80 members of parliament from the NPP who had signed on to this challenge to the president. Then the number began to grow. From 80, we went to 85. And then we were told that the number had reached 86. I left the studio when the number had reached 86. As of this morning, we are being told that 95 out of 137 members of parliament of the NPP has signed on to this protest. Now, if you add this 95 members of parliament to the 137 members of parliament from the so-called minority, clearly they have achieved the threshold for the impeachment of the president. That's a significant development in our politics. Now, when you have a situation where as many as 95 members of parliament from the New Patriotic Party get to the point where they have no confidence in some actions of the president and so on, there's a major national crisis. In fact, on that Tuesday, my mind began to play out all kinds of scenarios. What is going to happen? What is the next step? And I was very, very deeply worried. I'm not going to go into what I thought could happen. But I'm sure that everybody knows what we all thought could be the possible outcome of this level of protest and so on. My brother, then I immediately established contacts with the persons that I knew, in the New Patriotic Party, and also members of parliament of the New Patriotic Party, trying to follow the development. By mid-afternoon, I was told that the president had requested a meeting with the members of parliament and actually spoken directly to some of the members of parliament who had told me that they would not respond to the president's call. They would not go to the meeting. Hey. As they say in pidgin English, wahala don't come. What is happening? I was really frightened, Then the next thing that happened was a statement from the leadership of the New Patriotic Party. And that statement simply said that they had been made aware of the situation and that they were meeting with the MPs and meeting with the government as they were mediating. So by Tuesday, we had a crisis, which actually compelled the leadership of the New Patriotic Party to become mediators between the president and members of parliament. I was wondering, what if the mediation failed? So then I got to know that this meeting had been summoned and that members of parliament had eventually agreed to meet the president at the Flagstaff House. So all of us were waiting with bated breath to see what the outcome of this meeting was going to be. Sena, incredible. I mean, in this country, incredible things happen. At the end of the meeting, we are told that the president met them. He did not disagree with them. He did not disagree with the members of parliament. He only pleaded with the members of parliament to give the finance minister some time. Some time to do what? That the finance minister should be allowed to prepare the 2023 budget, submit the 2023 budget to Parliament, seek the approval of Parliament, get the appropriations bill passed, and then the finance minister should be allowed to carry on the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund to its conclusion. And I said, hey, what is happening? So these members of parliament who held the press conference and woke all of us up from our slumber, what is all this about? First of all, these members of parliament were stating that the finance minister was no longer capable of managing the national economy. That's what they stated. Now they go into a meeting with the president and agree with the president that the man that they know is incapable of managing the economy should prepare the 2023 budget. What budget can come out of such a finance minister? I mean, incredible. The man that they say cannot manage the economy, they now finally agree with the president that he should prepare the 2023 budget. This is only in Ghana. Cannot happen anywhere in the world. I mean, this is a miracle. You know, when we were growing up, miracles were being performed by people like Professor KKK and so on. Today, the miracles are being performed by politicians. Can't believe it. They say the man is incompetent. He cannot manage the economy. But we should allow him to prepare the budget for 2023, present it to Parliament, get approval, and indeed get the appropriations bill passed. Those who will be living in 2023, I feel sorry for you. I just feel sorry for Ghanaians who will be alive in 2023. This is the agreement we are told of. Now, if you look at this arrangement, the budget's arrangement alone, all the way up to the approval of the appropriations bill and so on, we are looking towards December or possibly January next year. All those arrangements. Put that aside. We are then told that the man should lead the negotiations with the IMF. Now, who knows when these negotiations are going to be completed? Some countries have negotiated with the IMF for 3 years. They haven't reached conclusions yet. So if we agree that the Honorable Minister for Finance should carry on with the IMF negotiations until its conclusion, we'll probably be talking about 2025. Hey, So what was the purpose of this press conference? In any case, if the man is so incompetent at the management of the economy, are we saying that he should carry this incompetence into the negotiations with the IMF? And then some smart guys in the communications setup of the government and of the party, they come to us and said that, look, he started the negotiations. If we withdraw him at this stage, there will be calamity. He is the only one who knows what is happening in these negotiations. The only one who knows. I foolishly assumed that the positions we were taking to the IMF was the collective position of the government of Ghana. I didn't know that it was Ofori Attah's position. You understand? Because if it is the collective position of government, if the decisions being discussed with the IMF are decisions of the cabinet, how does the removal of one cabinet minister change everything? So if they are telling us that the negotiations is being carried on based on the assumptions and so on of one person, that also tells us how the government machinery is working. So all these negotiations with the IMF is about Ofori Attah. Members of the cabinet have no input. They don't understand what is happening. Nobody can take over from Ofori Attah. What is this that we are being told? Now, Sena, you see the five of us seated on this set. Some people may say that what I'm about to say is morbid. But it's sometimes important to even say things that are morbid in order to make the picture graphic enough. There's no guarantee that tomorrow morning all five of us will be alive. The number of things which can happen between now and tomorrow morning are so many and even sometimes imponderable. Okay? So, what happens if Ofori Attah should fall today or tomorrow? They are telling us that without him, we cannot continue or succeed in the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. I mean, how does a country drive itself to this position where one person becomes so indispensable that without him, we cannot conclude negotiations with the IMF? What if he dies? What if he falls sick? What if he's incapacitated by ill health? It adds to the dangers, to the fears that all of us have. One-man show. That's what they're telling us. That there's a one-man show when it comes to the management of the national economy, the finances of this country. And that it must be very, very deeply, worrying. Now, I listened to one of my friends. He's called Honorable Eugene Entry. I think he used to be the Deputy Minister for Works and Housing. And he spoke on radio. Everybody heard him. And he asked a very, very important question. He said, we told the people of Ghana that we have the men. And that where are those men we claim to have? And why are these men not being deployed? Very important, sensible question. Are we saying that out of the 31 million Ghanaians, only one person can manage the national economy? Now, are we saying that out of the hundreds of thousands of members of the New Patriotic Party, only one person can manage the national economy. And if that is the case, why are we surprised that we are where we are? Why are we surprised that we are where we are? Sena, what is unfolding is tragic, it is frightening, and it points in the direction of an absolute lack of principle. And I'm very, very deeply worried by this situation. Now, when these matters started unfolding, my shock was deepened also by some statements that I was hearing from the so-called minority in Parliament. Some elements in the so-called minority in Parliament. To be honest, they frightened me far more than the developments in the New Patriotic Party. One of them actually had the courage to tweet. Is that how they say it? To tweet. And he tweeted. And what did he tweet? He asked the question and said, what does the National Democratic Congress want? And he answered himself by saying that the National Democratic Congress wanted victory in the next elections. I said, if we continue this agitation and Ofori Attah is removed from office, it is likely that the president will find a more competent person to manage the finances of this nation. And if that should happen, the hardships that Ghanaians are facing, which will propel us into power, will be gone. And then we are likely to lose elections. I said, my goodness, is this how some politicians think? That we know that the management of the economy is being so incompetently handled, but we should leave the incompetent hands to continue to mess up so that Ghanaians will continue to suffer. And out of that suffering, give us power. Master, is there hope anywhere? Master, tell me if there's hope anywhere. That we should help the government to perpetuate incompetence, so that out of that incompetence, another party can gain power. What kind of reasoning is this one? Wicked, reckless in the extreme, and so on. But you see, people are beginning to ask many questions. And you, Sena, you're on radio, so you hear these questions more than I do. One of the questions that the Ghanaian people are beginning to ask is that how was Ofori Attah approved? Today, the very people who approved Ofori Attah are crying out that he's not fit for the job and has to be removed. They've come with a list of things that he has done and not done as a basis for his removal. Sena, half of those things they have lifted was known at the time Ofori Attah was appearing before Parliament for vetting the second time. Now, if they knew all of that, how did they approve Ofori Attah? You approved him. You were a part of the process of his appointment. Now, you are coming to us and saying that he should be removed. We should remove him. You have the power to remove him. Don't talk to us again. You put him there. You assisted the president to put him there. And at the time you were assisting the president to put him there, some of these same illogical arguments were advanced. This argument that if you remove him, they'll get a more competent person, leave him there to spoil things so that Ghanaians will suffer and will win elections. You heard them. They made these same arguments at that time. Leave him to mess up the economy so that we can win elections. Now you have left him to mess up the economy. Go and win the election. Why are you crying? Go and win the election. Why are you crying? This is my problem. You understand? So we do not have just a problem with Ofori Attah. We do not just have a problem with the president. We have a problem with the entire political establishment, which is opportunistic, which is unprincipled. And I am very deeply worried about these developments. Now, you know, when we talk about the current state of the economy, people like to bury things in some phrases, jargons, and so on, which make no meaning to the rest of us. They come to us and they tell us that, you know, this is the rate of inflation. What does that mean? If you look at the official figures, the rate of inflation is pegged at around 48, 49, 50%. Official statistics. Okay? Why? For the man who is trying to feed himself and his family at Musuku in Agyaponmaa, that rate of inflation doesn't tell him much. Because less than a year ago, he was buying KK at 1 cedi. Today, he's buying the same KK at between 3 and 5 cedis. For him, the rate of inflation is not 50%. It's 300%. The rate of inflation as it affects his life is 300% and not 50%. Now, come to think about those involved in real estate. The price of cement has doubled, more than doubled. The rate of inflation for them, the rate of inflation as it affects them, cannot be 50%. Come to think of taxi and truck drivers. Petroleum prices have more than doubled, 100% increase. That is what affects them directly. The rate of inflation cannot be 48%. You understand? So these figures sometimes hide the true situation. Okay? Now, sometimes they also tell us about something called the GDP. They leave it even at the abbreviation. Then people are wondering, what is this GDP? GDP. If you are lucky, they try to explain and they call it the gross domestic product. What is it? It's a statistical average. May be useful in some economic analysis, but it doesn't tell us anything about the true life of our people. Then they tell you about the per capita income. Say, per capita income has increased. So what? The guy who has been unemployed for 13 years, per capita income doesn't mean anything to him. His pocket is still empty. Whether the per capita income rises or falls, his pocket remains empty. Therefore, per capita income means absolutely nothing to a guy who has been unemployed for 13 years. And there are people in our society who have been unemployed for 13 years or more. Okay? So these things they throw at us does not tell us the true state of the national economy. Indeed, sometimes it helps technocrats and politicians hide the true state of the national economy. Now, what is the true state of the national economy? The true state of the national economy, as can be measured in the pockets and lifestyles and work styles of our people, is that a vast majority of our people do not earn enough to pay for their transportation to work and back home. This is the reality. Okay? The reality of the national economy they tell us that today we are expending more than 100% of total national revenue on debt repayment, debt servicing, and public sector emoluments. We need a translator here. We need a translator. The translation is this: that we do not collect enough national revenue to pay for only 3 line items in the budget: debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. That by the time we finish paying public service workers, paying our debt, and paying the interest on our debt, the country is already broke. That we don't have enough money to construct gutters, what do they call it? Gutters. That's what they are telling us. That this whole country, Sikamine, Ghana, does not have enough money to build roads. That if we have to depend on our own resources, the children who are lying on the floor, without chairs and tables in our classrooms, their plight will continue to worsen because we do not have the resources to take them out of that situation. The state of the national economy is that the school feeding program will continue to deteriorate because there's no money. The state of the national economy, simply put, is this. Anytime our president travels out of this country, whether it is in the presidential jet, or it's with a rented jet, or whatever, the expenses that are borne by us must be taken out of loans that we contract. That's the state of the national economy. I can go on to make it more graphic. This is the state of the national economy. The state of the national economy, this is it. Basically, this is it. Forget the GDP and the per capita income and the rate of inflation and so on. This is the state of the national economy. Now, one of the questions that we need to ask is whether or not the removal of Ken Ofori Attah and the Minister of State for Finance from office can resolve this problem. Of course, all of us know that it will not resolve any problem. By themselves, their removal from office does not solve any problem. Because they are not the problem, and therefore their removal cannot solve the problem. Of course, in politics, as in law and in other things, other endeavors and so on, there is something which is called the aesthetics. Simply put, is the perception. Okay? My advanced learner's dictionary is not here. There's something which is called the aesthetics. The perception, the things from which we derive perception and so on. Aesthetics. That's the ally. You are the English master. Okay, you don't worry. The aesthetics. Their removal improves the aesthetics. It does not improve the substance. But the aesthetics, they say, are also important. Okay? So therefore, their removal may be good, even though it will not substantially resolve the fundamental problem that confronts us. Okay. So what is the problem? The problem, simply put, is that we are running a neo-colonial capitalist economy. Neo-colonial capitalist economy. And when you run a neo-colonial capitalist economy, your purpose is not to improve the living and working conditions of the masses. Your purpose is to constantly enlarge the pockets of the capitalists, of the bourgeoisie. Your purpose is to enlarge the pockets of the bourgeoisie, and in our circumstances, it is even worse. The purpose is to enlarge the bank accounts of entrepreneurs or so-called investors sitting in the colonial metropolis. That's the purpose. Now, sometimes this comes in all kinds of slogans. And one of the slogans that frightens me is that government has no business doing business. Where did this come from? This thing about government not having any business doing business, how did our politicians get this thing into their heads? Government has no business doing business. Then you ask them, if government has no business doing business, why do you seek a mandate? So it's to create the enabling atmosphere for the private sector to thrive. Hey, what is this? That we go and line up. We go and line up. Sometimes in the rain. Sometimes under the scorching sun. Stand in line for 5 hours to put pieces of paper into ballot boxes to empower people to take over the management of our resources. And their only business is to create an enabling atmosphere for individuals to become rich. Master, these people, they think that we are fools. Because when we queue up to go and vote, we are not going to vote to create an enabling atmosphere for the private sector. We go to vote so that our children can be educated, so that our children can acquire skills to look after themselves and to contribute to national development. We go to vote so that we can prevent diseases. We go to vote so that when we fall sick, we can get medical attention. We go to vote for better roads so that we can move food to the centers of population concentration. We go to vote so that when we dig gold from our land, it can have relevance to our working and living conditions. That's why we go to vote. And after we have voted, the people who voted for look us in the face and say that, oh, your vote is not about any of these things. Your vote is to make sure that private enterprise can thrive. What is the objective of private enterprise? The private objective of private enterprise, the most important objective of private enterprise is the maximization of profit. Maximization of profit is the most important objective of private enterprise. So that private capital goes into building schools only when it can yield monetary profit for the investor. Private capital goes into building hospitals only when it can yield profit for the investor, and so on and so forth. Okay? No private sector can take on the responsibility of government. Government's responsibility is direct, make our lives better. Private sector is not interested in making our lives better. They may sometimes contribute to making our lives better, but only if that can lead to the accumulation of profit and maximization of profit. If there is no profit in any venture, private capital is not interested there. So this slogan of government not supposed to be doing business, but supposed to be creating an enabling environment and so on, is an insult to all those who line up to cast their ballot for these elements to come to power. And that's my problem. The whole arrangement ought to change. We need to get people in government who see governance as a mechanism for improving the living and working conditions of our people. Finish. So we need to change the narrative. We need to change the purpose of government. And any time we approach a ballot box to put a piece of paper into it, let us remind ourselves that that act of voting has consequences. That act of voting can lead to the accumulation of the national debt to the point where we are, crisis point. And that act of voting can also lead to a situation where our conditions of life and work improve. Those are the choices we make when we approach the ballot box anytime, any day. My brother, why are we here? Only a couple of days ago, I was speaking in a public forum. And I asked some basic questions. Russia today is the most sanctioned nation in the world. Blockade after blockade. I mean, if you are a private citizen of Russia, you are not involved in Putin's administration, you don't even talk politics and so on, you are subject to sanctions. Only recently, I heard about a Russian artist, prominent one, in the West, who was dismissed from his job because he failed to condemn President Putin. Can you imagine? Not that he supported President Putin, failed to condemn President Putin. Failure to condemn Putin now is a crime punishable by the Western nations. Okay? But in spite of all of these blockades and sanctions and so on, the Russian ruble, their currency, is one of the strongest in the world today. How come? Russia took a number of measures. One, including the insistence that if you want to buy Russian energy resources and so on, you pay in the ruble. They are no longer accepting the dollar as a currency of preference in international trade. That's one measure they took. The other measure they took was to back their currency with gold. Gold. Now, look at Russia and look at Ghana. Which of us has more gold? Ghana today is the largest producer of gold in Africa. Largest. When it comes to the whole world, we are number 6, the 6th largest producer of gold in the world. How come that we are not able to back our currency with gold? Which has been proven by the Russians to stabilize national currencies. How come that we have not been able to do that? 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of the most prominent persons in Ghanaian mining, Sir Sam Jonah, granted an interview to one of the television stations. And he told us that if you come to Anglo Gold Ashanti, one of the biggest mining concerns in our country, Ghana's interest in that mining enterprise is 0. My brother, 0. 0. So we have gold, but in essence, the gold doesn't belong to us. We have gold which is not exploited in the interest and for the benefit of our people. We no longer own the resources embedded in our soils, and these resources embedded in our soils are not exploited for the benefit of our people. This is the problem. At least one of the problems, one of the reasons why we are where we are today. Simple things. Forget all those sophisticated English thrown at us by graduates of Yale and Oxford and where? which is the other one, Yale, Oxford, and Kobe, Harvard, and so on. That English is useless. Doesn't tell us anything about ourselves. We are where we are today because, my brother, in a world where people are rushing to mass, we are importing handkerchiefs. Now, if there's a country which is struggling to produce handkerchiefs today, 2022, that country is doomed to fail. Handkerchiefs! You see these Adwoa people, you know who the Adwoa people are? These people who carry sewing machines on their shoulder and they knock it with some stick. Ka, ka, ka. Adwoa, those people. If you assemble Adwoa people under a shed, they can produce handkerchiefs. Producing handkerchiefs is not high technology, it's not high tech. What investment do you need to produce handkerchiefs? We are producing handkerchiefs and we are importing handkerchiefs. I'm going to say something, Sena. I'm wondering whether I should say it, Percy. The things we import. Masa, have you been to Kantamanto recently? The last time I went to Kantamanto, I was worried. You see all these slave queens. Mother, I saw many slave queens in Kantamanto pushing each other. What were they doing? Can I say it? Buying brazier and pants, underwear. Second hand. I mean, a country, go to Kantamanto now. Pioto. Not new ones, so the Pioto, no. Not new ones. Second hand ones. We are importing. What at all? What kind of technology goes into the production of Pioto? Pioto. What kind of technology? You can't produce Pioto. Pioto. Masa, put the Pioto aside. That's what do they call it? Toothpick. Toothpick. It's important. To add salt to injury, is that how they say it? Yeah? Yes. Last week, sometimes listening to radio is a very difficult enterprise. Because we are disturbed, as our lady said. Perhaps you go and play TikTok, you are fine. You know, if you don't play TikTok, you just listen to Komode. You know, or one of those people. There's a guy called Funny Face, is that? Yeah. Those people, they make you relax. You have no headache. But when you want to listen to serious talk in this country, it's like we are inflicting injury on yourself, on your psychology and so on. Last week, I made the mistake of listening to some serious talk on radio. And a whole minister with honorable attached to his name is warning us that if we don't take time, we will soon start importing water.
We import water.
I know we import water. But now he's saying that you're going to import water on a large scale. Right now, if you go to the supermarket and so on, they have these fanciful bottles, imported water. That is for the rich people. When they do their birthday parties and you go there, you won't see Ghana water there. It's part of the status symbol. If you serve Ghana water at your wedding, you know the inside cry, you know rich. You have not arrived to cry, you are still there, Krasinimba. You understand? Krasinimba. Now all of us are in Krasifuomba and witches and wizards. That's what we are. If you open your mouth and you talk the way I'm talking, or you talk the way other people talk, and so on, your description is straightforward. Kurasiniba, Abeyifo, witches and wizards, sons and daughters of villagers. You're proud. Some of us are proud to be sons and daughters of villagers. But if you don't want to be called sons and daughters of villagers and so on, and you are doing a wedding, how can you serve Ghanaian water? You serve imported water. Outdooring, imported water. Birthday, imported water. You go to the supermarket, buy it, and you show that you are not a Krasiniva. You understand? But that is not what this minister was talking about. You are saying that we are going to go beyond this. You are going to import water. If you want to take your bath, you go and use imported water to take your bath. I'm saying, why? Because, you see our river bodies? These river bodies, now, according to the Ghana Water Company, the cost of purifying water, which passes through our taps, which we don't trust and therefore don't drink anymore, has increased by 100%. Yesterday I saw a video, I'm sure that video has gone viral by now. I saw a video, only yesterday, of the sea, the Atlantic Ocean. It is not only rivers which are turning brown, coffee brown, the Atlantic Ocean is also turning brown. Because all the rivers eventually find their way into the Atlantic Ocean. We are spoiling the Atlantic Ocean too on top of our rivers and so on. That's why we are here. Now, when Nkrumah and others, and I still insist that Nkrumah is the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana, the historical evidence is irrevocable. Nkrumah is the founder of the modern state of Ghana. Finish. When Nkrumah and others were struggling for the independence of Ghana, what were they struggling for? They were struggling for one, the right of our people to choose their own leaders. We didn't have that right. The governor was appointed by the Queen of England. Finish. Whether you liked it or not, the Queen of England chose the governor and was your head of state. You understand? So that was one of the things that we were fighting for. We were fighting to own our own resources and to exploit these resources for our own benefit. That objective of the independence movement still ought to be our objective today. That is the way out of getting out of this quagmire of economic crisis after crisis after crisis. That's the only way out. You understand? Our only way out is to pursue the three objectives of the independence movement. Nothing sophisticated, nothing beyond our heads. This is something every Ghanaian can understand. These are the things that we ought to mobilize our people around. These are the things that we have to push forward as a people if we are to genuinely regain our independence and take control of our resources. Sena, this crisis, we saw it coming a long time ago. Not today. During Kufuor's time, when there was this huge debate about whether to declare ourselves HIPIC or not, what was it about? At that time, we were spending 67% of our total export earnings, not total national revenue, total export earnings on debt servicing. And we thought that it was a huge problem. Okay. Now, we argued then that if we took on the HIPIC initiative, our situation will become worse. Has our situation not become worse today? It has become worse today. Look at the statistics that they are throwing at us. Our situation has become far worse than it was when President Kufuor took over power. Okay? And that should tell us something. I got to know that we are moving deep into crisis. The very day I heard that the minister under siege now, Ofori Attah, and his, how do you call them? The people in his court had thrown a big party celebrating our ability to take a loan. When a country begins to throw parties to celebrate its ability to take loans, then we are in trouble. That was the time I saw that we're heading into dangerous waters. What gave us national pride was that we had money to go and beg to get loans. And we held a party at the Ministry of Finance, party covered by the media, to celebrate our ability to take loans. Hey! If Kwame Nkrumah appeared in Ghana today, if anybody went and woke up Kwame Nkrumah from his grave, I'm sure he would plead that we send him back to the grave quickly. How can he contend with this level of, speaking on television is a difficult thing. Because you have to weigh every word that comes out of your mouth. Otherwise, you get into trouble. So I'm weighing every word coming out of my mouth. Look at what they're doing. Celebrating our ability to take loans. And when the government was being warned that all these loans will lead to a situation where the debt stock would no longer be sustainable. What did they tell us? You remember what they told us? Now we are there. It's not like they were not told. They were told. They ignored wise counsel. And this is where we are today. So, for me, and for the movement in whose leadership I work, sacking Ofori Attah, retaining Ofori Attah, World Bank negotiation, IMF negotiation, all those things are useless. What we need to do is to take control of our resources and exploit these resources for the benefit of our people. What we need to build is a people-governed state where the interest of the masses is supreme. That is the solution to the current crisis. Now we're being told that, as a matter of fact, tomorrow, only tomorrow, His Excellency the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will do one of the things that he likes doing, fellow Ghanaians. We are being told that fellow Ghanaians will happen tomorrow. And everybody is waiting for fellow Ghanaians to happen tomorrow. I'm also waiting. In fact, this evening, I'm going to clean my ears. I don't want any sound to pass without notice. So I'm going to clean my ears. We are going to listen to fellow Ghanaians tomorrow. I don't know what the president is going to tell us about. But whatever he's going to tell us tomorrow must do with solving the problems that confront us. Anything beyond that is useless. What are the solutions? What does he propose to resolve the problems that confront the Ghanaian people? Tomorrow, that's all we want to hear. I don't think that anybody in Ghana is interested in the evaluation of the government that he took over from. It's not necessary. It's a waste of everybody's time. We don't want to hear that the Mahama administration did that and did not do that and so on. It's useless. Nobody wants to hear that. What you want to do is you are the president. You are sitting in the chair. What are you going to do in order to take out of this mess? Finish. So the blame game is not what we are expecting tomorrow. Blame game should be out. In fact, the blame game would annoy us even more tomorrow. Nobody wants to hear that tomorrow. And I hope that the president and his handlers know the mood of the country. And they know that tomorrow, that's not what we are expecting. All we want to know is how to stabilize prices, how to deal with the debt stock which is killing us, how to make sure that ordinary people too can breathe small. That's what we want to know. I think there are some other things too that we don't want to hear tomorrow. And I'm not alone. There have been all kinds of rumors flying around. I don't think that anybody wants to hear tomorrow the president announcing measures which amount to the confiscation of people's savings and investments. We are not responsible for this mess. The laws allow people to keep their monies in the bank in dollars. On the basis of the law, people have engaged in lawful enterprise, accumulated their wealth, saved their wealth in foreign currencies and so on. Government should not come and seize those monies. I hope you understand what I'm saying. We don't want to hear that tomorrow. We don't want to hear about a devaluation of the national currency anymore. Because these devaluations have not helped us over the years. Okay? And we do not want to hear about what was done in the past. What do they call it? Demonetization. Is that how they call it? I think so. Demonetization. And redenomination and so on. We've tried it, they didn't work. We want to hear something fresh and new. Mr. President, we are waiting for you. We hope that you can make us happy tomorrow. But if you are not able to make the people of Ghana happy tomorrow, and the anxiety continues to build up, the anger continues to build up, hooting at you on the streets of Kumasi may look like school children at a concert party. Okay. They look like school children at a concert party. So save yourself, save all of us by saying the right things tomorrow. Masa.
Thank you.
Nakari.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
He has labored. Are you put off by the very low standards that most accommodation facilities offer?
Well, it's time to heave a heavy sigh of relief.
Collindale's Court is here. Located at Birch Street, Community 12 off the Tema Motorway, Collindale Court offers you top-of-the-range short and long-stay accommodation steeped in luxury.
Our 2-bedroom apartment is what you and the family need for your weekend getaway, while our 1-bedroom apartment gives you a peaceful ambience to work from home.
Our rooms are fully furnished, air-conditioned, and come with all you need at your beck and call. A well-stocked kitchen, dining area, Wi-Fi, DSTV, Netflix access, and an endless list of other amenities, thus creating a unique sense of place far exceeding your expectations.
Our gym and swimming pool exactly suit your preference for keeping fit and recreational activities. We also have a very spacious conference room for your business meetings.
Collindale Court offers even more. Our rooftop bar is a thing of scenic beauty, giving you and your loved ones a bubbly nightlife of music and dance. Call us now to make your reservations.
0243 186017 or 0244 258 332. Collindale Court.
Exceptional comfort for beautiful people.
has suffered.
Thank you very much for staying with us on the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We're live on Pan-African TV. And of course, we are live on Radio Gold. A big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. We have to move on to the discussion of the consultations the president has been holding this week. In fact, I'm looking at the Daily Graphic publication and I engage stakeholders on economy. Question is, what would that achieve? I'll start from Elvis Botah this time around. Please, you have 5 minutes on that particular issue.
Starting on an annoying note, Sena started signaling me at 20 minutes of conversation. So I know at this point we just had nothing but five minutes, you know, to talk about, and that doesn't help analysis. It makes it rather very, very difficult when there is a lack of time. And I think going forward we will need to restructure, especially when the topics are very sweet like this. You have that temptation of converting the discussion without even knowing it's taking a lot of time. I'm sure that is the trap that caught my uncle today. But I take consolation in his own expression, where he says, hey, I've used all the time. Be it as it may, I think that in the next conversation, I wouldn't have any much useful to add to the practical examples of the harsh realities of the economy as espoused by Mr. Pratt. Only to say that apart from the many things we are sure, the many unwanted things we are sure of hearing tomorrow, will also be this same IMF thing coming at the center of it, as though it's going to be one of the major things that ever helps any economy. Because in fact, if you understand globalization and its ills, if you understand globalization and its discontents, you get to realize that these Bretton Woods institutions have not been built to help any country. In fact, it is to keep countries of the peripheral highly impoverished. And if you are minded to consider the views of Titus Alexanders, he said that the IMF, like other globalized institutions, are only meant to entrench the inequalities of the world and to advance a global apathy against developing countries. And so this should be the crust against which our leaders must resurrect themselves from their dead wisdom into learning to formulate domesticated products, you know, and to stop the too much politicking. Why we are here is actually because of too much politicking. And that's why I'm here we can't even do much justice to this, because there is that stupidity of leadership running through Africa, Ghana, and throughout all our leadership. Look at the example Mr. Pratt cited, even on water, which we're going to be importing very soon. Just simple water to drink, cook, and wash. The political economy of Galamsey, what it is doing to water bodies, and what national budgets we will have to feed into purifying water. Ghana water is on its knees. Unfortunately, I'm in a certain advantage position, so I'm skeptical what I divulge. But look, Ghana Water Company is totally on its knees. Then, in the midst of that, the president who has failed in his promise to crack down Galamsey, actually watching some people around him perpetrate Galamsey, leading members of my party and government are culpable of the act. It's very quiet about it. That is irresponsibility, right? Then you go back and look at the former president. We were in this country, you are on radio, it's public knowledge. I will release people imprisoned for Galamsey. So it tells you how the politicking, whether it is NDC or it is NPP, is actually playing out to the detriment of the nation. Can we stop the politics? Can we stop the partisanship? Can we be nationalistic? I'll leave it here.
Thank you. Thank you. Adwoa.
Okay, since we've already exhausted the time, I would say that I have benefited greatly from Uncle Pratt's submission, and on many levels, I agree with him. I'd like to swiftly address the Twitter post that he made reference to about an honorable member saying that we deliberately, put Honorable Ken Ofori Attah in position to further impoverish Ghanaians. You see, NDC as a political party, just like the CPP or the NPP or any other political party, is a human institution. And that means that besides the party's position, there will be individuals who will also have their own way of thinking. And so it can never be that perfect. And so we shouldn't mistaken one person's or a group of people's actions or inaction or post or write-up to mean that that is the position of the entire party. And I often say, hardship do not discriminate. If I go to the pumps today, I am buying fuel at the same price as my brother in the NPP and as everybody else. We are all feeling the heat. And there are NDC members who also have businesses in this same economy. The party was in power. It built things in this same economy. We don't think we want the things that we built and the systems that we put in place to be completely eroded just because of politicking. I would state emphatically that if we're looking for the NDC's real position on the issues, we should look at last week, Thursday, the presentation that was made by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. If some of these solutions that he proffered are listened to and followed through, and we are out of this economic hardship, will it not inure to the political benefit of the NPP? But of course, His Excellency did not look at those things. It is indeed the position of the NDC that we must do better, we must elevate ourselves, above the petty politicking that we're doing, so that we can move forward as a nation. On the issue of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo meeting stakeholders, some of us are of the belief that this type of meeting should have occurred even before we went to IM. As it stands now, the public is not privy to the exact things that has been discussed in these meetings with Guta, AGI, and the rest of the people. But how I see it now, how is it different from when he went to the chief's palace to tell them to assist him to stop Galamsey, when he has all the constitutional powers and the military and everything that he needs to stop Galamsey? You are going to discuss with Guta to tell them what? Are you telling them to allow their capitals to be swallowed in the CD dollar battle? Have you put in place any measures to make sure that cost of production is lowered for AGI members? Uncle Pratt said, people do business for profits. And so what are some of the discussions that are going into this? These are meetings you were supposed to have. And His Excellency John Dramani Mahama talked about these issues. If you check City Newsroom, one of their journalists did a story about 9 months ago on how we needed to come together and organize some of these stakeholder meetings, even before, we decided to go to IMF. And so I do not understand how many people in this country seem to be light years ahead of this government and its appointees. And when things are suggested, instead of people to be humble and, listen to some of these suggestions, they would rather wait until, it is almost late. And Uncle Pratt said, some of these advices were proffered, but people closed their eyes to it because they do not want to, take advice from other people, from the people they called names, from the people they called incompetent, from the people they insulted when they were in opposition and had not even proffered any solutions. And so here we are. So that is my little contribution on the meeting with the stakeholders. And as Uncle Pratt said, we are hoping that tomorrow, perhaps, maybe, His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, would come and tell us what are some of the measures that has been taken and what the way forward really is. And as His Excellency John Dramani Mahama said, we hope he said he hoped that whatever the president has to say to us touches the core of Ghanaians. And it is something that is going to benefit all of us and then, you know, propel us to another level. Because we are suffering. The hardship is real, especially for those of us who are even yet to build wealth. You know, there are some people who have already built wealth and their wealth is being eroded by the decisions that has been taken. There are some of us who do not have the wealth in the first place. We have not even built anything. We do not, and there's no hope for us. And so the hardship is real for some of us young people coming up. So we want to hear something positive. We want the country to develop. It is never the position of the NDC that we want the hardship to continue. There are individuals who have, you know, who may even sarcastically say such things and in a jovial way, but it is never the position of the NDC. And like Uncle Pratt said, we are waiting for the president tomorrow. We hope we hear some, you know, very good news.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Percy.
Well, it will be a triumph of hope. Over knowledge. If the president was to level up with Ghanaians and proceed on the basis of an honest conversation. I don't expect that to happen. I mean, to go completely against the grain of this president, to own up. Because that will require that first he dismisses finance minister and order his prosecution as a first step. But if we were to do that, he'll be cutting the branch on which he's sitting. So I expect a lot more of what has been going on for the past 6 years, which is managing the news and maintaining the illusion that, things were just around the corner. Now, a small point about the MPs. They may have owned up to the incompetence, the mismanagement, and the plain thievery at the Ministry of Finance that has brought us to this manifestation. But they themselves may truly believe that actually we are just about to turn the corner. Because they say, well, they are going to allow the finance minister to oversee the presentation of the budget and head negotiations with the IMF. But if any intelligent person, if any person of intelligence has examined where we are, you know that it's going to take several moons before we are close to anything like an agreement, which will just maybe get us out of the hot water temporarily. But for me, I think that the more important thing is not what this president will say, but what the healthy political forces in our country will do. Because by and large, we are in the hole we are because progressives, however you call them, have really gone to sleep. point Kwesi made, that the agenda at independence remains largely unfulfilled. In many senses, we have gone backwards. We have lost our self-confidence. We've lost our self-belief. We lost confidence in the people of Ghana. And people are waiting for salvation from all kinds of phantom sources. But we must recognize the task that we have. And first, understanding the nature of what we have on hand. And we've gotten to a point where the main parties in our country call those who have a vested interest in our backwardness, in our being on our knees, they call them development partners. I'm sure the NDC does so. We must recognize that this situation persists because there are people in our midst who win a bonus every time we lose. Recently, I heard about losing bonus in football. But there are forces, economic and political forces in our country that win every time we collectively lose. Which is why Ghana has 0% in Anglo Gold. Which is why today we are a net exporter of oil. Right? But we import practically all petroleum products. And I could give example after example after example, take every sector of the economy. So it's first to understand that this involves a fight, involves a struggle. That there are the economic and political forces in our country that gain every time the collective lose. We must understand that, we must identify them, and we must build our people's knowledge and understanding and organization so we can mobilize to change the situation. This moment would be criminal to waste. If we've been slumbering, it's time to get to work.
Thank you, Doc. Mr. Pratt.
Well, we are all constrained by time. But the matter before us is a very simple one. You know, we are busily locking the stable after the horses have bolted. We have gone to the International Monetary Fund with a program. We are negotiating with the International Monetary Fund. In fact, the president insists that the finance minister should stay on and finish with the negotiations. And we are busily doing consultations. Consultations for what? What are we consulting about? So if the consultation produces results which are different from the one we played before the IMF, are we going to withdraw and start all over again? Then Ofori Attah will stay there for another 5 years. Yes, sir. Let's be serious. These so-called consultations, what are they about? I mean, we didn't know that we had to consult on the state of the economy for 6 years. One morning we woke up and everybody is shouting consultation, consultation, consultation. For what? Master, let's move on.
Thank you. Just a few messages before we go. This is Ambassador Sampiale who says Ghana is going through What Ghana is going through is the net effect of property-owning democracy, which means converting state assets for private profit. Individuals' profits, Ghana sinks. That's Ambassador Sam Piale. This is Kwesi Attah in the UK, which says, Ghana today, the government and the politicians in power don't care where the supremacy of Ghana resides. The people of Ghana in whose name all the welfare of the movement resides. The issue of the dollar fluctuation should be squarely placed at the doorsteps of the Bank of Ghana. My question is the Bank of Ghana pushing huge cedis into the system, while some greedy individuals and politicians use the same cedis in the economy to chase dollars? That's coming from Kwesi Attah. Okay. This is from Stephen Kobinato, who says, from the position of the president on Ofori Attah and the need to allow him time to finish negotiations with the IMF, it is reminiscent of how Dr. J.B. Danquah defended his family members in the Chebi Meda case through all the appeal processes without allowing any other lawyer to lead the case. There's something they cannot let others know, and that is what is playing out there. Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm says, good morning. Truth be said, we are where we are today simply because of the arrogance of the finance minister and some functionaries of the MPP government. They will not simply listen to good counsel from experts. They always feel they know it all. To me, the Minister of Health and Agric Minister should also go. Ghana at the moment is bleeding seriously, and we need serious prayers and God's intervention. That is coming from him. Masola Kwabli says, Akufo-Addo knew absolutely nothing when in opposition. In fact, he was very arrogant, but he decided to deceptively turn a new leaf by appearing as humble, caring, and respectful person in 2016, which made section of Ghanaians fall for his lies and deceit. Today, his arrogant, vindictive, and incompetent nature is clear before our eyes. We are all seeing how incompetent, arrogant, and vindictive he is. That's coming from Master Lakpabli. There's Hadi in Pig Farm, who says the Nana Addo Bawumia government has lost its credibility with respect to the economic management. Government is about honesty and truthfulness. This Nana Addo Bawumia government, however fancy, blatantly lying to the good people of Doma. They promise to transform our economy, and today all we see is the free fall of the cedi, skyrocketing fuel prices and galloping inflation. Let me end with Habib, who says, isn't it amazing that MPP brags we have the men not knowing Ofori Attah is the only man among them? If not, so why is Ofori Attah still in office? The 80 MPP parliamentarians who told us that Ghana is not practicing dynasty and Akufo-Addo is practicing family and friends, they have credibility. They told us that their constituencies want the finance minister out, isn't it? So did they consult their constituencies? Did they consult their constituencies? What Mr. President told them before agreeing to him. So those are some of the messages you are sending to us. And that's how we conclude the show today. One thing I took away is when Dr. Percy keeps saying there will be pain. In fact, I think the pain started in 2017 when the banks were closed down. There are several people who lost their lives, lost their livelihoods. Those of you who went through that process, you can just imagine what people will go through. And so we are looking forward to what will happen. But just know that the finance minister that presented a budget for 2022 that landed us here, his last budget failed, is the one they are entrusting to prepare the next one. So that's where we are. We thank you very much for making time. And I say a big thank you to Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of Socialist Movement of Ghana. He said things that never occurred to me. In fact, I think the ATMPs, we can just forget that they did this. It's just drama. And then a big thank you to Dr. David Percy, who is a student of history and politics. Elvis Botah is a former deputy national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. Wonderful to have you in the studio this morning. And to our debutant, Adwoa, Agyaponmaa, Ansong. What do you call it? Debutant. Debutant. First time. Debutant. It's actually football language.
Elvis, who is compelling us to have a dictionary in the studio.
Introduce women.
Articulate, have you? No, not that.
Really did extremely well. I mean, performance.
Okay, she's actually a member of the National Democratic Congress.
Yeah. That on the flyer too, I was wondering what the designation was. You just kept the name and that was all. It's important for her political marketing.
My name is Sena Nombo. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show. Thank you very much for making time.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people.
Are you put off by the very low standards that most accommodation facilities offer?
Well, it's time to heave a heavy sigh of relief.
Collindale's Court is here. Located at Birch Street, Community 12 off the Tema Motorway, Collindale Court offers you top-of-the-range short and long-stay accommodation steeped in luxury.
Our 2-bedroom apartment is what you and the family need for your weekend getaway, while our 1-bedroom apartment gives you a peaceful ambience to work from home.
Our rooms are fully furnished, air-conditioned, and come with all you need at your beck and call. A well-stocked kitchen, dining area, Wi-Fi, DSTV, Netflix access, and an endless list of other amenities, thus creating a unique sense of place far exceeding your expectations.
Our gym and swimming pool exactly suit your preference for keeping fit and recreational activities. We also have a very spacious conference room for your business meetings.
Collindale Court offers even more. Our rooftop bar is a thing of scenic beauty, giving you and your loved ones a bubbly nightlife of music and dance. Call us now to make your reservations.
0243 186017 or 0244 258 332. Collindale Court.
Exceptional comfort for beautiful people.
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Truly African.
TV. This is Swift Africa. Relax. We'll be right back.